Gentlemen, your attendance, your generous encouragement makes possible another season of these broadcasts. The actors and musicians, the engineers and sound technicians, all the craftsmen and artists who contribute their efforts to this program want me to tell you how grateful we all are to all of you. In behalf of these ladies and gentlemen and of our sponsors, the makers of Campbell Soups, I promise you the best year of radio plays we know how to produce. Ladies and gentlemen, we present tonight the beautiful, the well-beloved Peter Ibbetson with Helen Hayes as Mimsy. But first, before we begin, welcome back to the Campbell Playhouse. My name is Peter Ibbetson.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to hear the story of a man who was my friend.
I have been for many years an object of pity and contempt to all who ever gave me a thought. To all but one. To all but...
He died early this year in a cell at Wormwood Jail, in which he'd been an inmate for over 28 years.
Contempt to all.
He had been originally sentenced to death over the murder of a near relative. Later, this was commuted to imprisonment for life.
Yet of all that ever lived on this earth, I have been, I think, the happiest and most privileged, as you will see, as you hear my story to the end.
For a great many of the facts you're about to hear, I can personally vouch. Of the supernatural parts, there is not much I can say. You must remember that the man who wrote this was for a time incurably insane, and there seems to be some doubt among authorities at the prison as to whether he had ever completely recovered. At the risk of being thought to share his madness, if he was mad, I want you to know that I, for one, believe him to have been sane and to have told the truth all through.
As you will see, as you hear my story to the end.
Come in, sir.
Thank you.
You no doubt have been in Paris before?
Yes, I've been in Paris before.
Oh, it is much changed, is it not? It has now grown larger, more of a town, more beautiful. The emperor has done great things. Yes, you must be very pleased with Paris.
Pleased? Why should I be pleased? When I lived here, there were gardens with green trees and hedges and grass and flowers. Now what do you see? Little mean yards and villas like a London suburb.
Oh, but it is so much more modern.
Yes, of course. Tell me, how long is it since the houses in the street of the Pump were pulled down and rebuilt?
Oh, it is done since a long time. I myself had the hotel here for 4 years. And when I came here already, the old houses, the old, rubbish were already gone.
Rubbish, you call it? I see.
Now, if you will say what you desire for dinner, we have tonight very special blanket of veal.
Thank you. I don't feel like dinner.
But, sir, you...
Just leave me alone. I'm very tired. If I want anything, I'll call you.
Of course. Thank you, sir.
And he left me there by the open window. It was that day that we had our first dream. I'd lain there for a while thinking of all the things that I'd seen that day and remembering my life as it had been in London and here in Paris when we were children. I'd lain there by the open window, I can't tell you how long, remembering the years gone by, that beautiful French garden under the warm June sun where I began my conscious existence. That afternoon in Paris, in Madame Sorasquier's drawing room, when I first saw Colonel Ibbetson.
Here he is, Colonel. This is your uncle.
Step over here, boy. Come on.
Now then, Gogo, don't be shy, dear. This gentleman's come all the way from London to see you.
Oh. This is the boy whose father blew his brains out trying to get rich quick, eh? Hardly looks like a French frog at all, do you, boy? Speak up, Peter. You can speak English, can't you? Come, let's hear you say, how do you do, sir?
How do you do, sir?
That's better, you young scamp. Now then, straighten up. Meet your Uncle Ibbetson. Colonel Ibbetson, that's my name. To be yours from now on.
You mean you're going to take him away, Colonel?
I am indeed, ma'am. Leaving for London tonight. I'll make a gentleman of him, an English gentleman. Not like that French frog father of his, a man who couldn't even provide for his wife.
Colonel Ibbetson.
I think of what I offered that woman. Do you mean to tell me, ma'am, she never told you about me? Her cousin never told you, poor thing, that she and I...
Please, Colonel. The boy.
Oh, yes, the boy, yes. Well, ma'am, can you have him ready to leave tonight?
Yes, if you wish it. He can be ready. If you'll excuse me, Colonel Ibbetson, I'll start getting his things ready.
Of course, dear lady, of course. Gad, what a woman. Well, boy, say something. What's the matter? Are you dumb?
I don't know what to say, sir.
Oh, aren't you glad to be going to England?
I don't know, sir.
Don't know? Well, I'll be dashed. Oh, not that I blame you, you little rascal, with a lovely lady like that next door to make over you. The way she had her arms around you, boy. By George, I'd have given something to have been in your place myself. Quite the young Lothario, aren't you, boy? Aren't you, huh?
And so, on a beautiful June afternoon, sweet with roses and lilac and gay with dragonflies and butterflies and bumblebees, my happy childhood ended as it had begun.
Go. When you go away and you can't see me for a long time, for years and years, will you forget me, do you think? Of course not, Mimsy. Why do you think that? Well, I don't know. Boys are so different from girls. I expect you'll remember me all wrong if you don't forget me altogether.
Oh, what rubbish you do talk. Go. You must come now, dear.
I don't want him to go.
Come, dear.
Mother, I don't want him to go away. Go.
And as our carriage started, I remember I looked back and saw for the last time the house where I was born. And standing at the iron gate, I remember Mimsy, with her thin, pale face and close cropped hair, sucking her thumb, trying not to cry. A moment later, our carriage had turned the corner, and they had vanished forever. And so it was that I left my childhood and went to England with my uncle. And there I lived for 12 long years until that day in June, the day of our first dream. I came back to Paris and fell asleep by the open window in that little parlor of the Tête Noire Hotel. I remember it was evening, Sunday evening in Paris. I'd seen it over and over again, just like this in the old days. From where I lay, I could see the cafes in the little square between the bridge and the park. The air was full of the scent of trodden grass and macaroons and sweet French tobacco blown from the park, of gay French laughter and the faint sound of music. 12 years I'd been in England while my uncle tried to make a gentleman of me. An English gentleman like himself. On my 21st birthday, he'd sent me to his tailor for a dress suit. After that, he took me out with him into society. That was where I met her. I was at Mrs. Dean's. Mrs. Dean was a lady to whom my uncle was at the time especially attentive.
Mr. and Mrs. Herbert Grace, the Duchess of Towers.
Why, Mr. Ibbetson, what's the matter? What are you staring at?
That lady. That lady who's just come in.
Oh, so you too, Mr. Ibbetson. You've fallen a victim to the epidemic of admiration?
Who is she?
Don't you know? That's the Duchess of Towers.
Duchess of Towers.
Have you never heard of her? She's one of the kindest and most beloved women in London. Dear Mary does so much good. Yet her own life has been very sad.
Oh, I don't understand.
She married the Duke of Towers, somewhere abroad, I believe. He was charming enough for a while. Now there's no one in London will speak to him. Yet she remains so loyal to him. Come, let me introduce you to her. I want you to know each other. She's really one of the most charming and delightful women.
Charming evening. I heard that the Grace was in London, that's why.
Oh, Grace, it's a wonderful thing you're doing, that new hospital you're found.
Oh, thank you. You're so kind. If you only knew what happiness it gives me. I'm so glad you were able to come. I wanted to see you, my dear. Mary, I want you to meet a young friend of mine, Mr. Peter Ibbetson, the Duchess of Towers. How do you do, Mr. Ibbetson? Why, Peter, what's the matter? You seem tongue-tied.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Dean.
Well, you did want to meet her, didn't you? What a strange boy you are. You mustn't be afraid to meet people.
Oh, Mrs. Dean, it's not that. Honest, seeing her like that, I just couldn't. She's too beautiful.
Why, really, Peter?
Ah, Mrs. Dean, I can see you're trying to entertain that nephew of mine, the moon calf. Come on, wake up, boy. Stop scooping through the door at that fair one in the room beyond. Poor fool. The desire of the moth for the star, the night for the morrow. Well, I'm afraid you've not inherited your father's prowess as a Don Juan.
Don Juan? Why, he always speaks of his father as the most devoted husband.
Ah, yes, of course, yes. He speaks of that Frenchman, Pasquier. Yes, of course. But I can see that you, Mrs. Dean, being a woman of the world, have already guessed a certain...
Ibbetson.
Oh, dear lady, be discreet. Not a word, I beg you. I wouldn't have it known for the world. But as you seem to have caught the likeness...
Ibbetson, for heaven's sake.
We were young, his mother and I, and spring, you know, spring in Paris.
I don't believe it.
Oh, of course. Well, that's what you have to say, Mrs. Dean. But tonight, before I sleep, I'll write you explaining everything. Peter himself will bring you the letter. Won't you, Peter?
Why, yes, sir.
That's right, my boy. Here's a chance for you to make up for your clumsiness. Remind me, I want you to take a letter to Mrs. Dean tomorrow. A very private letter, you understand?
Yes, sir.
I want you to deliver it yourself, Peter.
Very well, sir.
And now, dear lady, if I may have the pleasure of your arm. Que voulez-vous? This is the call of youth, and what is youth, sweet lady, without love? L'amour, si doux, si bon, si ravissant.
L'amour. I'd left my uncle's house after that, left it determined never to return. And I was back in Paris. So it was that that evening, tired and saddened, I'd come to the hotel. I lay there by the open window with evening coming on, thinking sadly of things I'd seen that day. A crumbling wall, a stump of a tree, a rusty iron gate. All that was left of my dear, familiar world. From below, I could hear the noise of laughter and the faint sound of music. And down the street, an open carriage was driving towards me, coming closer and closer under my window. There was a lady in the carriage by herself, and as she glanced up at my window, for a moment, as in a flash of summer lightning, her face seemed to light up with friendly recognition, with a sweet glance of kindness and pleasure and surprise, a glance that pierced me like a sudden shaft from heaven. It was the Duchess of Towers. And a moment later, the carriage was out of sight. I lay there a long time by the open window. In the square below, the voices were still, and it was getting dark. And then it was that I fell asleep. Perhaps it was my weariness, or the heat of the thunder in the air, or the strange sound of the distant, familiar music.
Mr. Ibbetson?
The Duchess of Towers.
Come in, Mr. Ibbetson.
Oh, I can't. The gate is closed.
The gate isn't closed, Mr. Ibbetson. You only think it's closed because you're not dreaming true. Don't be afraid. Give me your hand and come in with me. You see, it's so easy. It's an old iron gate to a garden, that's all.
Am I awake or am I... Oh, it's so strange. I know I'm asleep. Lying by the window in the parlor of the inn.
Yes, and just now from your window you saw me driving by. So don't be afraid. And of course you're asleep, Mr. Ibbetson, and dreaming. Otherwise I'd not be talking to you like this, you may be sure. Hold my hand, Mr. Ibbetson, and come with me. Now. What do you see?
I see a garden. I hear someone playing.
You know that tune?
I seem to have heard it before. Long ago.
You see, now you're dreaming true, because I had you by the hand.
Dreaming true?
Yes, and now you must try again. I'll hold your hand and help you. Give me both your hands. Where are you now?
I'm in a garden looking over a wall. Somehow I expected the wall to be very high, but it isn't. I find I can look over it easily.
You can see everything quite distinctly, can't you?
I can even smell the scent of the flowers.
You can see and hear and smell, but you mustn't touch, ever. Flowers or people or anything. Now try again. What do you see?
I see a tree, an old apple tree, and I see two women sitting under the tree. One of them is knitting at a table, and I know that table. There's a small boy there in an old-fashioned suit of clothes. He has a book in front of him, which he's reading, and by his side is a little girl with close-cropped black hair and a thin, pale face, peering over his shoulder. May I
Could I speak to them? Just for a moment. Mother, Mimsy, Madame Sarofsky, eh?
It's no use. They can't hear you. You must remember that all the things and all the people in this garden are dead and gone by. If you try to touch them or speak to them, it blurs the dream like breathing on a window pane. I don't know why it does, but it does. With you and me, it's different. We're alive and real. That is, I am, and you seem to be real too, Mr. Ibbetson, by the grasp of your hands. Though why you're here and what business you have in this, my private dream, I still don't understand. No living person has ever been in it before. I can't make it out. Still, you're very welcome here, Mr. Ibbetson, if it amuses you to come. Especially as you're only a false dream of mine. For what else can you be? And now I must leave you. But if you want to stay on here in this garden after I've gone, you're very welcome to that, too. If you can.
Time to go in.
Oh, not yet, Madame Sarofsky.
Yes, Gogo, it's getting late. Your mother'll be wondering where you are, and the dew is beginning to fall.
Oh, Mother, just one more story. You promised. Oh, please, Madame Sarofsky, one more story.
Oh, very well, one last story. What shall it be this time?
Tell us about the white cat. No, the Sleeping Beauty.
How about Prince Charming and the Fairy Princess?
Oh, yes, Prince Charming, the Fairy Princess.
Well, once upon a time, many, many years ago, when the world was a younger and better place than it is now, there lived a king and queen who had one son, and his name was Charming. And when he grew up, the king, his father, and the queen, his mother.
I had awakened. There were voices in the passage.
Now, the hotels will be quite comfortable in the parlor until the storm passes.
Thank you, and will you see that my coachman and footman are dry and comfortable?
Yes, madame, I will see myself to your orders. I'll carry it out. Thank you, madame. You are too kind.
The Duchess of Towers.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know there was anybody here. Why,
Yes, Your Grace.
you are Mr. Ibbetson, are you not?
It's very kind of you to remember me, Your Grace.
Oh, please don't let me disturb your early evening nap. You were sound asleep, weren't you? Confess.
Yes, I'm sorry. I must have dozed off.
Oh, don't apologize. I fell asleep in my carriage myself just now until the storm awoke me. And then I had the coachman pull up at this inn because he was getting wet and the horses were frightened by the lightning, poor thing.
I think I saw you drive by just now from my window. Do you often come to Paris, Your Grace?
Whenever I can steal away from London and the season and the rush, even for a day, I come across the water here to Paris.
I love Paris, too.
Strange that we should meet here in this little inn. I didn't know that anybody knew of it. At least not English people, I mean. Mr. Ibbetson, this winter when I saw you at Mrs. Dean's...
Oh, I'm afraid I stared very rudely at you. I was hoping you'd forgotten.
I remember it very well, Mr. Ibbetson. You know, that evening, in a strange way, you reminded me of a little French boy I once knew who was very kind to me when I was a little girl, and whose father you happened to be like. But then I met you and heard your name, and afterwards they told me you were a young English architect, and from that, and from what I hear, a very promising one.
Well, I was once a little French boy.
You? Mr. Ibbetson.
Yes. But later I had to change my name to please a relative and become English. As a child, this is where we lived, here in Paris.
What an extraordinary thing. What was your name then, when you were a child?
My father's name was Pasquier.
Pasquier. Gogo, Pasquier.
How did you...
Don't you know who I am? Gogo.
You're...
Yes.
Mimsy. Mimsy Sarofsky.
Oh, my dear. My dear. So it was our garden you were looking for, and our house.
It's all gone, Mimsy. All pulled down and built over and changed.
I know.
It drove me nearly mad, and then just now I saw them all again, and... No, that's foolish. That was a dream.
A dream?
I'm trying to remember what happened. I came up here. I was tired and disappointed. I sat by the window there, and then you drove by in the street below.
Yes.
It got dark, and there was thunder in the air. Then I must have fallen asleep, and I suppose it was seeing you just before that. But I dreamed I was in our old street, and I just got to the avenue gate, and the gate was closed. And then suddenly you were there.
I was there?
Yes, in my dream. And then you came towards me.
I came towards you and held out my hand and told you that you were not dreaming true.
I couldn't quite make out what I was doing in your dream, and you gave me good advice.
About not touching anything or picking the flowers, or the dream would blur. Mr. Ibbetson, it's not possible. Two people can't have the same dream.
You led me inside and you told me how to dream true. And you showed me the garden.
And my mother was there. And your mother and you and I as children under the tree. Mr. Ibbetson.
Oh, please, Mimsy, don't
Mr. Ibbetson,
go.
I can't tell you what it has been to me to see you once more. I thought you had died long ago. I feel as if I were dreaming now, except that all this seems so impossible and unreal, and dreams are never unreal. I don't know if I shall ever meet you again. You will be often in my thoughts, but never in my dreams again. That at least I can command.
But, Mimsy...
No, believe me, it mustn't be, Mr. Ibbetson. I am not free, and this must be our final farewell. I can't tell you how I feel about you and always have felt. We shall often think of each other, but we can never be together in our dreams. I wish you all the good one human being can wish another. Goodbye, Mr. Ibbetson.
You are listening to the Campbell Playhouse presentation of Peter Ibbetson, starring Helen Hayes and Orson Welles. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System. Now we resume our Campbell Playhouse presentation of Peter Ibbetson, starring Helen Hayes and Orson Welles.
What's the matter?
There's nothing the matter, sir.
Don't you want your supper?
No, sir.
You're a queer one, you are. You don't eat hardly nothing. At night, you sleep like a baby. And all day, you sit here at this table crawling away for dear life.
There's no harm in it, is there, sir?
No, there ain't no harm in it if it makes you happy. But if I was you, Mr. Ibbetson, I'd try to eat a bite. That's what I'd do. Well, anyhow, I'll leave the dish here. Maybe you'll change your mind. I'll come back for it later.
So. Now I'm alone again. I can go on with my story. You know about my enchanted youth and of the garden in Paris where Mimsy Soroski and I played as children. I've told you of my coming to live in England with my uncle, Colonel Ibbetson, of my return to Paris, and of my strange meeting with the Duchess of Towers. Now, with an unwilling heart, I must come to the great calamity of my life. Soon after my return to London, I called one evening upon my friend, Mrs. Dean.
Why, Peter, you're back. Where have you been?
In Paris. I returned this afternoon.
You left so suddenly. Is it true you and your uncle quarreled?
I'm afraid so.
I'm so sorry.
To tell you the truth, I've been feeling rather sorry about it myself. Mrs. Dean, there's one thing I want you to tell me, something I've never quite understood. That evening at your house, my uncle made certain remarks, certain allusions to my father.
Peter, I assure you, he was just talking. He didn't mean anything.
Mrs. Dean, that wasn't the first or the last time my uncle has spoken in that way about my parents.
Peter, may I ask you a question?
Yes, of course.
Your father and mother were a very devoted couple, were they not?
They loved each other at first sight, and they kept right on loving each other till the day they died.
And your uncle, Peter, did they ever talk about him? Were they friends, he and your parents? Did your mother like him? Well?
Not much, Mrs. Dean.
Was there any particular reason for your mother's aversion to the Colonel, as far as you know?
I really don't know.
Peter, I have a reason for asking you this.
Well, as a matter of fact, Mrs. Dean, there was a reason. Colonel Ibbetson, he's not really my uncle, you know. He's my mother's cousin. He'd once been infatuated with my mother, rather desperately so, and she had to refuse him 3 times before he gave up and went abroad to India. Later, she met my father, and they fell in love.
Peter, do you know the exact date when your uncle went to India?
Oh, yes, certainly. He sailed with his regiment, the 43rd, 15 months before I was born.
That's what I thought. Then he isn't your father.
What did you say?
Your uncle is a villain, Peter, and a liar. He's done you and your parents a fearful wrong.
Oh, Mrs. Dean.
Peter, you know your uncle's handwriting and his crest.
Oh, yes.
But do you remember bringing me a letter from your uncle the morning after you were at my house?
Yes, I remember.
Well, this is the letter. Now that I know what a foul lie it is, I thought for your own sake and the sake of your parents' memory, you ought to know what it says.
Mrs. Dean.
Listen. Here's what he writes. Poor fellow.
All price you want.
Charming but foolish. We were cousins, much thrown together. Both so young, and one so beautiful. Happily, an unsuspecting Frenchman of good family was there who had loved her long, and she married him just in time.
What is it?
Crockett.
Oh, it's you, Mr. Peter. Why, we ain't seen you in a dog's.
Where's my uncle?
Why, the Colonel said he's upstairs. He's in his room, but it's late.
I got to see him.
Oh, there, you are in an hurry, Mr. Peter. I never saw you in such an hurry before in my life.
Uncle!
Oh, well, the traveler returns. My beloved nephew. Why this honor? You come like a dutiful nephew to humble yourself, to beg forgiveness?
Uncle, I've come to have a talk with you.
Here, what are you doing? Unlock that door.
Not until I'm finished, Uncle.
Here, what the devil?
Sit down, Uncle. You wrote Mrs. Dean I was your son.
It's a lie. It's a lie. Who told you so?
She did, just now.
It's a lie. A spiteful invention of a cast-off love. I suppose she told you that, too, that I'm finished with her. Now unlock that door and get out of here, you pitiful green jackass, or I'll have Crockett.
You needn't ring that bell, Uncle. It won't help you.
Get out of here.
Look at this letter. Do you know your own handwriting?
A forgery.
Get down on your knees.
What are you doing, boy? Take your hands off my throat. Crockett!
Get down on your knees.
Let me go.
Go on down on your knees and confess the truth.
Confess.
Confess you're a coward. Confess you're a liar. Confess what you wrote in that letter about my mother was a lie. That I'm not your son.
I confess. I confess.
All right, now. Get up. Go over there to that table. Try and undo some of the harm you've done. Right. That neither my mother nor Mrs. Dean were anything to you, but... Uncle?
Now then.
Put down that knife.
I'll tell you, you fool. Of course they were. They both were. Mrs. Dean and your mother.
Put down that knife.
Of course I wrote that letter. Every word of it was
Put
true.
down that knife.
I'll show you who's master here, you parasite, you murderer!
Uncle!
You have heard the verdict of this jury. Before sentence is passed on you, have you anything to say in your own defense?
No.
The sentence of this court is that you be hanged by your neck until you die.
I'm glad you've come.
Mr. Ibbetson, last night you spoke of some message to a friend. Do you care to give it to me now?
Here it is.
What is it, Mr. Ibbetson? There are certain prison regulations.
I don't think this will interfere with regulations. It's a miniature of my father and mother.
Who is it for?
For Mary, Duchess of Towers. And you won't send it, will you? You'll take it to her yourself.
I will, Mr. Ibbetson. I promise. No message goes with this?
Just tell her it's from me. She'll understand.
Very well. Mr. Ibbetson, we haven't much time. Will you kneel down with me and pray?
Pray? Yes, Chaplain, I'll pray to whatever's left in me of inherited strength and courage.
This is the way, then. Down this way.
Is this his cell? Is he in here?
What's that? Oh, don't let them come in. Let me alone, I beg you, let me alone.
It is. Chapman's with you.
Mr. Governor.
Come in, sir. And you, ma'am, come in.
Peter, we have good news. Tell him, sir.
Mr. Ibbetson, the Home Secretary has just commuted your sentence to life imprisonment.
No!
Ibbetson.
I tried to be brave. I tried tried to keep my courage up by thinking of the time I was going to die.
Oh, Peter, you mustn't take it this way.
You think you're being kind, but you're not. You're not.
May I be alone with him, do you think, for a few minutes?
Well, Chaplain and I will wait out.
Oh, thank you very much. Peter, won't you keep on being brave?
I'm young and strong. I'll probably live 50 years. 50 years of misery and torture. Alone. Why couldn't they have let me die?
Peter, I have a message for you. From someone you love. Yes. Yes, from her. It's she who gave you back your life.
Mary?
Yes, her husband died last week, and she was away. When she heard the news of your trial, she came back to London. She was with the Home Secretary for over 3 hours tonight, pleading, arguing, fighting as she never fought before. And in the end, you see, she won.
Yes. And the message, please.
Tell him his life has just begun.
She said that?
Yes. What answer shall I take back with me?
Tell her to try, if she can, not to think of me as I am here. A murderer. But as the little boy she used to play with so long ago.
Is that all, Peter?
Yes, that's all.
Now I must leave you. Let you have some sleep. Lie down here. You're so tired.
I couldn't.
Oh, but she wants you to. Oh, I forgot. That was the rest of the message. Tell him to sleep and dream true.
Dream true?
She said you know what she meant.
Mimsy.
What's that?
Nothing. I'll try, Mrs. Dean. I'll try to sleep.
There now. Let me put this rug over you. There. We can't have you catching cold.
Thank you.
God bless you, dear boy. Sleep and rest.
Thank you.
I'll come again. Often.
Mr. Ibbetson, so at last you've come.
Mary.
I've been looking for you and waiting for you here. Why haven't you come sooner? Oh, I suppose you couldn't sleep, or you couldn't dream.
I've tried so hard. Ever since that terrible night, I've not been able to dream true, not once.
Poor Peter.
Mary, I swear to you by all that I hold most sacred, by my mother's memory, and yours, I never meant to take my uncle's life.
As if you need to tell me that. Look, I'm holding your hands, and I can see into the very depths of your heart.
Mary, he came towards me with that long knife, and he went down, and I struck him again and again.
Hush, hush. Each time I pass my hand across your brow, I wipe away some bitter memory, you see. Listen.
No, the Sleeping Beauty.
How about Prince Charming and the Fairy Princess?
Oh, yes, Prince Charming. Fairy Princess.
Well, once upon a time, many, many years ago, when the world was a younger and a better place than it is now, there lived a king and queen who had one son, and his name was Charming.
Do you hear? His name was Charming, and when he grew up...
I'm a failure. My life is finished.
Hush, hush. Give me your hands to
No,
hold.
it's true. It's true. All those high hopes we had when we were children, all crumbled to dust. I wanted to fly up in the sun, because you asked me to. I wanted to succeed beyond all men because you wished it.
Peter.
There never has been anyone in the world but you. Never a ghost of a woman. Never even a friend until that night when I first saw you in London. Till then, I scarcely lived at all. I fed on scraps of remembrance. I was waiting for Mimsy to come back again.
And when she did come at last...
Oh, for a time I was too blind to recognize her. And now I don't know which of the two has been the sweetest. You or she. Both have been my life.
And shall be, Peter. And shall be.
Charming and the beautiful fairy princess were married and lived happily ever afterwards. And that, my dear, is the end of the story. Now, come on, children. This time we really are going home. Go, you take the basket.
Mother, are you sure they lived happily ever afterwards?
Yes.
Forever and ever?
Yes.
Forever and ever and ever?
Yes.
Oh, Gogo, I'm so glad, aren't you? I'm so glad they're happy together.
You see, Peter, from this moment we belong to each other. Nothing can ever come between us again. During those hours which people call night, when our bodies lie in the half-death known as sleep, in spite of your prison, we too shall be together. I am free now. Each moment I can steal from my waking existence will be devoted to you as long as we both shall live. I shall make you happy, dear. I shall make you forget. We shall go back together and see everything that either of us has ever loved or taken presence in. Peter, isn't such a life, our life, sweeter than death?
Little has happened to me in the 25 years that have passed since that fateful morning. Little that men can see. In the outside world, those years have seen many changes, I am told. A new generation and wars and inventions that have done much to alter the face of the earth. But to me, they are merely 25 years of the most impossible happiness. 25 years. It seems like a single night. And like 1,000 years. So little has our world changed, and so much have we seen and felt and done, Mary and I together, in that busy, enchanted quarter of a century. Mary beside me, never a day older, in the enchanted home of our childhood. And if ever this should change, if ever the day should come...
Mary! Mary! Where are you? Where have you gone? Mary? Yeah. Where are you? Mary? Hey, Captain, good to see you. Where are you? The old one. Why don't you come to me? Why don't you come to me? Can't you hear me? Can't you hear me? Oh, Mary. Mary! There he is, off again.
How is he tonight, Warden?
Not so well, ma'am. Talking very strange he is. Seems to think he's lost someone. He's getting weaker too, ma'am. Doctor says he can't last more than a day or two.
Peter. Peter, don't you know me? Warden, would you mind leaving us alone for just a little while?
Certainly, ma'am. I'll be just outside in case you need me.
Thank you.
Mary. Mary. Where is she? Where is she?
Peter. Peter, I want you to be brave and bear what I'm about to tell you.
She's dead, isn't she? Isn't she? I knew it. She didn't come to me last night in our dreams. And we've met every night for so many, many years.
She sent you this. It was the last thing she did.
I'm too weak. Read it to me.
Soon again. The fairy princess.
That what she said. Thank you. Soon again. Soon. Oh, I'm so tired, so tired. I could only see them once more. The garden and the flowers and Madame Sarasquier playing. So tired. So tired.
Peter, didn't you know I was near you?
Mary, you've come back to me. Oh, my darling. I couldn't have waited any longer.
Hush. I know all you've been through, Peter, by the touch of your hand. Does the touch of my hand tell you nothing?
Only of your great love for me. And that's enough.
You've no idea how difficult it has been for me to come back to you, Peter, even for a few moments. And even now I can't stay very long. It's like holding on to the windowsill with one's wrist.
But since you died, Mary, I haven't had one single...
Every thought you had, my love, since I died, I know already. You will know it. You will feel it. All in a moment, just as I did. And the world, the foolish world, will call you dead. And you will only have begun to live.
I can't understand.
And I can't find words to tell you. Language is such a poor thing. But where I am, it is all eye and ear and the rest in one. And oh, so much more besides. Where I am, I hear the sun shining on the earth and making the flowers grow. And the birds sing and the bells pealing for life and death. Happy, happy death. If you only knew it, Peter. The sun is shining on moons and planets, and the very stars are singing.
What does it all mean?
It means, Peter, that nothing is lost. Nothing. We on Earth are only poor little grubs. Our body is the cocoon we spin ourselves from our early life. That's what we are, Peter. Memories that never die.
And shall we be happy? As happy as we have been?
We shall never be parted for a single moment.
That's all I want.
And think of it. Here there are battles to be fought and races to be won, but no longer against each other. And the good and the bad and the worst and the best are all mixed up. Only the good comes to the top and the bad goes to the bottom. Out of sight and out of mind, forgotten. And everywhere about me, there seems to be an ever-widening where perfection is. In a moment you will wake and I must leave.
Oh, don't leave me, dearest.
Too very soon. Goodbye.
Oh, no. No.
But not for long. There's no sadness in bidding you farewell, because I know that you will come to me. Time is nothing. A few hours till the dawn breaks and the shadows fly away.
Don't go, Mary. Mary, help me. I can't see. It's dark all around me. Mary. I know now what she meant. About the darkness, the shadows, and the dawn. The light. The light.
My friend Peter Ibbetson died in Wormwood Jail at the age of 67. After his death, I had the melancholy satisfaction of seeing him in his coffin. The splendor of his dead face as he lay there will haunt my memory until I die.
That was Peter Ibbetson, a fascinating and powerful love story. When we prepared for the CBS broadcast, we always rehearsed over 2 days. The first day was so we could run through the script and familiarize ourselves with the characters. When doing shows like Peter Ibbetson, it also gave us time to shed our tears before going on the air the next day. Actors also need to fully respond to the characters, just as the audience does. And by the second day, we were able to control our feelings and solely submerge ourselves into our parts. At that time, we were scheduled for 2 broadcast productions, one at 8 p.m. and the other at 11 p.m. for the West Coast. Given all the fun we had back then, and with the technical capabilities available to broadcasters today, that's a scenario that will never happen again.